All right. Let's see. Okay. So, hey Google, what's today's date?
It's Sunday, June 9th, 2024.
Hey Google, what time is it?
It's 2:37 p.m.
Okay. So, just a few minutes ago, oh, in case that was too low, it's 2:37 p.m. on June 9th, 2024, Sunday. And just a few minutes ago, I was burned on both sides of my head, and then I was specifically burned on the left side of my head and then down the middle of my head. Um, and I said a few choice words. I I said that the power is always in my response, which is pretty much it. And I said that this type of pain isn't going to give you power, that the power really lies in my response or in compliance of my response. Um, and then I said my famous thing that I say, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, freedom it must. The only thing that you'll be remote controlling at the end of the day is ashes and dust. And, and, like, I will respond in kind based on how this technology is used. And that was the approach I took. The other approach was, according to ASL, there are certain things that certain target areas, for instance, if the left side of your temple, if the sensation is directed at the left side of your temple and it makes you put your hand to the left side of your temple, it can mean a few different things, but one of them is future, you know. So if you look at ASL, putting your hand to the left side of your temple could mean future. There's other things that mean other words that I'm not going to even mention in this um, podcast, just for specific reasons such as liability. But believe it or not, putting your hand towards certain parts of your head communicates specific words in ASL, specific things in ASL. So like when I got burned on both sides of my head, then after I got burned on both sides of my head, then I got burned down the middle of my head. Sometimes I get burned in my forehead, and it makes me put my hands to my forehead. Not everything means something bad, or actually none of it means anything bad. It's just the way that you use it. So when you think of language is not good or bad, but when you formulate it into something complete, it could mean something neutral, good, or bad. So, the issue I have is, why did both sides of my head get burned? Why did I get burned down the middle of my head? For what reason? And it hurt. So, like I always say, Pittsburgh is known for steel. If you want a robot, build one. I'm human. I'm a black woman. And even though I built up this tolerance due to habituation, meaning it hurt me, but like pain is my boyfriend. I'd rather it be my friend than my enemy. So I've built up this high tolerance for extremes amount of pain, and it did hurt. I did feel it, but my question is why, and what did it mean, and did it mean anything? And it's not a headache. Like I got completely burned on both sides of my head, and then burned on my left side, and then burned down my middle, and then it stopped. And then I said those things out loud because my first inclination when that happens is I'm rejecting it, because I feel like I can feel everything to the lightest tap to the most horrific violence ever. So it's like I'm radioactive from the tips of my toenails to the fibers in my head and my hair. So why do you use the biotech in such a violent way? And the reason is what my manuscript was about, the psychology of feeling, because the end users don't have the knowledge, nor do they care, nor do they have the burden of what it feels like when they're utilizing biotech on someone else's body. And without that perspective, if you did have a moral code, if you did actually care, if you did actually see me as human and not as just some punching bag that you can utilize the biotech on at any cost with any amount of pain, if you actually had some perspective on what it actually feels like, then perhaps you might find other ways of utilizing it that doesn't cause harm. Like, those are my thoughts, because America, the United States, is supposed to be leaders in human and civil rights under the law. Matter of fact, we tell other countries and we dictate to other countries how they should treat their citizens and civilians, because we have such a high standard in care and how we treat our citizens and our civilians. So it was just my thought that perhaps you might want to know what it feels like when you're utilizing biotech that you snuck in another human being's body. Maybe you might want to know what it feels like. Perhaps I need to write a manuscript called What's the Matter? The Psychology of Feeling, so that I can articulate in an academic format, in a credible format, for the so-called smart people, what it feels like when you utilize biotechnology that you snuck in my body at my expense for your profit. So then, with me saying all of that, it could mean something, or it could have been someone just listening to my podcast or reading my book and trying to see if I'm telling the truth or not. It could be, it could actually mean something. The thing is, I don't know. I feel, and I can sometimes interpret, but then again, I often just say what happened to me, and I leave it up to whoever, because someone else did that to me. So they must know what it means. I don't know exactly what it means. I can guesstimate on what it means. I know that it just didn't happen by itself because I had some kind of like ache or some kind of pain, or I had fibromyalgia, or I'm standing in the sun. No, I'm in my bedroom. You sitting down. I don't have a headache. And the burn to my side of my temple, the burn down the middle of my head, the burn to my left side of my head, it came, it went, it had pauses and breaks. It was significant. It seemed, um, it wasn't sporadic because of the way that it happened. And then it ceased. I no longer felt it anymore. It went away just like that. So, and I haven't felt it since. So that tells me that someone did that. Now, why they did it, I don't know. I'm always doing the 50-50, like it's some kind of test or something. And I always feel like they're trying to like give meaning to something, because give meaning to something as like a scapegoat. Like, let's make it academic instead of a horror show and a terror show for self-serving rapist pervert men who also use it to digitally rape and assault women who have the biotech in their body against their will and without their consent. because there's someone on the other end. Meaning, I've said in an academic way that this biotech has the ability to make you feel what other people feel. It doesn't always have to mean in a sexual way. Matter of fact, my last podcast that I put out, I re-listened to it, and I said how I felt by the way that I was attacked. And I felt when I listened to it again, and I literally was so upset, and I was saying what I felt like it was communicating to me. It also made me think that maybe that's what someone wanted me to feel, maybe because someone else in the world is feeling that. Like, I didn't really think about it until later, until I listened to myself, and I listened to how upset I was, and I listened to how I articulated myself. Um, and I said, not saying that it's an excuse or anything, but I said that this biotech has the ability to make you feel what other people are feeling. I said that even though I explained it much different when it comes, I've explained it in a more technical manner when it comes to asynchronous. And I felt like the guy from Google who was on CNN, he explained it in another manner. Both are correct. Mine is more technical than his explanation. But he basically said when one knows, they all know. So when one knows, but he didn't say when one knows, they all know. He says when one learns a skill, they all know a skill. I say it's even simpler than that. It's when one knows, they all know. It's, but he used the word when one learns a skill, they all learn a skill. So it's just slightly different. Um, and for me, it's not about knowing. It's about being able to feel what the other person is feeling, which is also knowing. Sometimes it's knowing. It depends on if it's communicated in a way where it can be interpreted or definitely articulated. But the only way that can happen is if you've had some kind. Well, no, that's not the only way. Because I was going to say the only way that can happen is if it was consensual or collaborative. But it's not. That's not always true, because if somebody taps you on your left shoulder, or they tap you on the side of your eye, you're going to look to the left. You didn't have any collaboration. You weren't consenting. You didn't have no collaboration, but I've been tapped on my left side, I'm going to look to my left. I've been tapped on my right side, I'm going to look to my right. And perhaps you might see something significant, and then no one taught you that. So there is several ways of communicating without collaboration with this biotech. I use something very simple. That was just simple. That's like Vygotsky. If two people didn't know each other's language, the first thing again, I'm adding my own perspective to Vygotsky, and I added what we learn in reading class, the 5 W's, the what, when, where, who, why. So if you don't know what the other person, how they talk, you don't know their language, you don't know anything, there's no way of you communicating with them. You can't read their language. You can't speak their language, but you know if they point one place or the next, you're going to look and see what they're pointing at. And if it happens over a certain amount of time, you see them point at a certain amount of time with a certain pattern. Trey, I'm doing a recording. Can you please? Okay. So if you see someone point in a certain direction, you're going to look and see what they're pointing at. And then if it's over a certain amount of time of observation, you're going to see when they're pointing. You're going to say, when are they pointing? What are they pointing at? You're going to look and see if there's anything in the environment. Who are they pointing at? You're going to what, when, who, where, and then why. So those are things that you don't really have to have any consensual collaboration to start to make a certain assumption about what something means. But I've talked about this before, and I've talked about it in my manuscript. The other thing is is I had to call the police yesterday to report what was happening to me. Because I've been getting attacked a lot. And I feel like by explaining things in like a coherent academic way, I kind of minimize the real violence that is inflicted on me by dummies, basically. Evil dummies. That's what they are. They're evil and they're fucking stupid. And they use the biotech on me to do very violent, horrible, horrific things, and I ignore it. I ignore it. I've built up this resistance or habituation where a lot of things happen to me and I just don't even react or respond. At all, because I realize that's where the power is. The power is always in my response. It's kind of like, regardless if you're trying to get me to snap, or regardless if you're trying to get me to be submissive, or regardless if you're trying to intimidate me, or you're trying to create some type of compliance, it doesn't really matter. The bottom line is you push that button. Were you able to get what you needed from me? If you didn't, then then there's no power in that. The power is always in collaboration, compliance, you know, like I always say that someone with real power doesn't have to really use coercion. Coercion takes a lot of energy and time out of your day. And then you're always having to look over your shoulder because you're always doing something that you don't have no business doing. And then you also you're pretty much always thinking or like in a threatened format. So I literally feel like real power is when someone is compliant or when someone listens to you without coercion. And then if you have to use coercion, that's not real power. And then if you use coercion and you still don't get the response that you're looking for, then there's no power in that. And I realized that I can feel everything that you're communicating, but I can choose what I respond to. It's kind of like, I know what my name is and I know how I want to be treated. And I'm going to create as much frustration as you cause me by misusing the biotech on me. And I don't know who's doing this to me and I don't know why, but I know that it's un-American. And I know that you're not using the biotech to take us forward. You're actually using it to try to take us backwards. And I don't think that that's everyone. I just think some people are just really evil, really stupid, really ignorant, and really self-serving. And they have no business having access to biotech that is in someone else's body. And I feel like it was snuck in my body. Therefore, I don't really have any rules that I need to follow. I really don't. I don't even know why someone half the times is doing this to me. I just don't know. I don't. But I can figure things out. It's like some things, it's like I feel like I said before that someone has like turned me into the fucking oracle. And that's fine. It's just I don't really have much to say about that. I mean, like I said, the biotech communicates. What you're communicating is what really matters, and what you're using it for should be most important. And I definitely say, I'm always saying, you can't use it to human traffic women. You can't use it to roll back the clock. You can't use it to try to get somebody to bend the fucking knee. I'm just not. And that leads me to the next thing. I feel like I've been getting attacked because I said this in my podcast that I put out, the flow of energy, because of my new discovery. So I have like these discoveries that I don't reveal in its fullness because I'm still like trying to make sure, I think. And I feel like someone knows everything that I do. And so they're always doing things to me to like test. And I keep saying my goal is to always be able to trump and overcome the pain that you're causing me. So my goal, I always said this Bible tech was snuck in my body, and I've just been tailoring it for my survival and for to snatch and take away the power that you think you have by using it on me. So a lot of things happens to me. I feel a lot of pain throughout my day. I'm literally studying pain. So it's like pain is my boyfriend, and I'm studying pain, and I'm always trying to find ways to relieve myself of pain. And I'm also trying to understand like where the pain is coming from inside my body and how to minimize it. Um, but first, I need to find where it is. I need to find how it travels, and I need to see if I can redirect it. So I've been doing that, and someone knows that. And I feel like they see what I do. They say, she's fucking smart, but they don't want anyone to know it. And so then they sit there and they do things to me so that they can control the narrative by getting me to talk about things like getting digitally raped. Like, so I literally feel like anytime I do anything that's halfway intelligent, I know that I'm going to get attacked by the person that wants to make sure that that's all I talk about. Like, it's just like by the way you use the biotech on me will then create the direction of whatever I talk about. But half the time, that's not even what I'm doing. That's not even what I'm not focused on what you're doing to me. I'm focused on trying to survive and from what you're doing to me. And by doing that, I discover a lot of things, which I already said in my last podcast in general terms, that humans have the ability to change the flow of energy based on certain elements that they come in contact with within their environment. Those are my own words that I academically formulated to reveal what my discovery is without being specific. And I know that I'm right. And it helps me out in some ways, but not always. And I feel like that's why you also have been attacking me. So you listened and you said, okay, so you have the ability to change the flow of energy based on what you come in contact with within the environment. Well, let's see, right? So you've been trying to see, and I never said that I can't feel what you're doing to me. That's not what I said. The problem is that I'm always in chronic pain because of what you're doing to me. When the energy flows through my body, it's, even if it's not actually being used, it lays and lies dormant in certain areas. So it's not, so for instance, yesterday between 5:30 and 5:35 or 5:34 p.m., I got several what felt like Morse code vibrations on my left leg. I don't know what it meant really. I mean, I felt like it was a couple of H's and a couple of S's and O's in there, but I couldn't really figure out what it was. It wasn't a muscle spasm. It lasted for about 4 minutes, I would say 5 minutes. I know at 5:32 p.m. it made me pick up my phone and look at my phone at the time. Because at first, when I felt it, I just was like, okay, what is this? And then it stopped, and then it came back again, and then it was boom, 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 boom. And I was like, okay. And then I picked up my phone at 5:32, and then it was like boom, 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 boom. And I was like, okay, it means something. I don't know, but I notated it. I notated it, and I was like thinking 50-50. Either they're trying to see if what I'm doing is changing what I feel. It's not changing what I feel. It's changing how I feel it. So I still feel, in case you wanted to know. Now you know. I still feel. It's just how I feel it. it doesn't change what I feel, it changes how I feel it. And my goal is to not feel as much pain as I feel, which I'm always in a pain. And I like shouldn't say this, but I don't know what else to say other than I thank God for my high stand like endurance or resistance or tolerance of pain, because I'm like, you snuck this shit in my body and you don't care, nor have you asked about my pain. And so that's what, like, a lot of my manuscript talks about my pain, and my podcast talks about my pain. And I said that there's different kinds of pain. Like, all pain is not the same, meaning sometimes I feel pain and I feel like it's not deliberate pain. It's like, it's just a side effect of having this biotech in my body. Then sometimes I feel like deliberate pain is inflicted on me, right? Deliberate, targeted, deliberate pain is inflicted on me. And then there's the emotional pain of being sexually assaulted against my will without my consent. And I literally go around town and some of these men just act like, I don't know, they act like I'm some kind of famous movie star that they're trying to avoid. And it's just like, or like, it's weird. It's something going on. Like, body language just doesn't lie. It just doesn't lie. It's pretty obvious. And I'm just like, what do you know that I don't know? And why are you acting like that? And I pretty much can assume what they know. Like, it's not like I'm unaware. I wrote about it in my manuscript, but I'm just kind of like, I'm always hoping that I'm wrong. I literally be hoping that I'm wrong, because God help us if I'm right. I'm always hoping that I'm wrong, but it's the way y'all be acting. I be like knowing that I'm right, and I'm just kind of like, how do y'all not know that that's not okay? How do you not know that that's not okay? And if you don't care, I feel like we're like a little like Germany. Like, how do you not know that that's just not okay? How are y'all, how is our government even allowing this to happen? It's just, I be hoping that I'm wrong. I do. I just be like, please, Lord, I hope that I'm wrong. So, and now I'm getting the smell through the vents, like, because someone doesn't like what I'm saying. So, remember, I can write y'all book on these chess plays. The way that you attack is always in silence through the five senses of what you see that is unspoken, what you feel that no one can see, what you smell that no one can hear, right? So, should I go through it? It's like, that's your MO of attack. It's the way to shut me down. And if I say anything else that is just too, then I'll start getting itched in my throat to the point where it's like, makes me gag, but I still keep talking anyway. It's convection in the vents, right? It's like convection in the vents. Cause what does convection do? It boils and it becomes a gas, and then the gas seeps through the vents, and then the person can smell it and it becomes a toxin, but you can't hear that. You can't see that, but you are affected by it. It's the same thing with the turning the nervous system into a CPU unit, that you can press buttons that people can't see, people can't hear, but you can feel it and it affects you, right? That's how y'all work all the time. And I'm still going to talk and say my truth. Um, You've done this to other people and it's psychological warfare, but the things that you're doing are tangible, just not in the way that it leaves witnesses. It's the MO of incognito. So there is no witness to a smell unless you are actually in the environment and you can smell it too. And then you have to see the pattern to even know if it's true that someone would do that to you or do that to a person to silence them. It's the same thing with the biotech, except they sent me to write the book for y'all so that y'all aren't able to like create a confederacy with your psychological warfare tactics unlawfully, unjustifiably, illegally to try to intimidate civilians and humans and try to take away people's civil liberties and take away people's rights unjustly. That's which because you have people right now that are using these tactics and methods to do that. And that has to stop because I've always been a law abiding citizen and a civilian. And I don't deserve the things that have been done to me using biotech and things done to me in my home to try to take away my peace. I don't deserve the things that someone does to my vaginal area and my rectal area against my will or without my consent using biotechnology. I am a U.S. citizen. I was born here. My grandfather fought in the South Korean War. My stepdad fought in the Vietnam War. I don't deserve to be treated like this by other US citizens. And I'm more of an American than you could ever fucking be after what you've done to me and my children. And I will not be intimidated